Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And in this video we're going to look at hedge trimmers because it is this time of the year and it's important that we get the right hedge trimmer for the job. And which ones to get really depends on the type of hedge you're going to cut. But also, where is it located? Is it in your backyard or is it somewhere back in the field somewhere? You're going to need a different hedge trimmer. The hedge could be rough or woody, or the branches could be fine and young, like this Texas. And size does matter. This is a fairly low hedge, but then again, it is really wide. And some can be very tall. And you don't want your hedge trimmer to be limited to a hedge, but you might want to trim some other plants. And of course, the budget could be another factor, but my advice is don't buy cheap, because buying something cheap ends up most of the time becoming very expensive. So let us start now with looking at the different parameters that define a hedge trimmer, and then we'll look at the different power sources, and then you most likely will be able to make up your mind what is the best hedge trimmer for your specific purpose and use. The first parameter is the weight, and the weight will be determined by many factors of that specific hedge trimmer. If you are having to cut hedges all day long, you want to go for a lightweight hedge trimmer, like 3 kilograms. If it's residential use and you cut your garden every so often, then it doesn't really matter. Then you can go for 3.5 to 4 kilograms. Again, it's going to depend what type of hedge cutter it is. Is it electrical? Is it a gasoline one? Is it a battery-based one? That will affect the weight. But I'll come back to the weight later on once we start talking about all the individual different types of hedge cutting machines or hedge trimmers. Another very important factor is what we call the length of the blade. Some of the blades can be very long and others are shorter. Now, the longer the blade, the more the weight; the shorter the blade, the lighter the weight. But long blades have a big advantage. So when you start cutting, you don't move around yourself so much. You don't have to bend down the whole time and up again, especially if it's a very high hedge. So keep that in mind. A long blade is going to cut much faster. It allows you to move much faster. But you're going to need more power on the motor. As you've seen a few seconds ago, we have hedges that are very wide. So then a short blade is not going to help me very much. You might need a long blade. Again, this is something you need to decide. The second aspect is, how are the blades moving? How is the knife moving inside the blade? Typically, you have two types. You have a one-actioned knife and a two-actioned knife. Now, the one-action knife is actually a fixed knife that doesn't move, and one knife moves over it. That has a certain cutting efficiency, but it's not all that great. This is the cheap stuff. I would not buy this. The second type is a double-action knife. These blades or knives are moving both at the same time against each other in opposite directions. Their cutting efficiency is really good. So this is the kind of blade you really want to have, with two knives moving at the same time in the opposite direction. In fact, the blade with a single-action knife is going to cause more vibrations. So you really don't want to have this, and you get more fatigue out of that. And then we come to the strokes per minute. You know, as these knives are moving back and forth, the speed at which they move is what we call strokes per minute. The higher the strokes per minute, the cleaner the cut will be. And you might need more strokes per minute to cut thicker branches because it's going to cut nicer. So in general, higher strokes per minute are providing a much cleaner cut. And you really want to have a clean cut on all your branches, no matter what you're cutting. Typical strokes per minute for residential ears is around 2,000 to 3,000 strokes per minute. For more professional tools and a better quality cut, we're talking between 3,000 and 5,000 strokes per minute. And ideally, you have a machine that you can adjust the strokes per minute. There may be moments in time you might want to go to a lower stroke per minute rate, and moments in time you want to go to a higher stroke rate. And a simple example would be very young, thin branches that are cutting off very easily. You don't need to go full speed, right, on strokes per minute. You can go on a lower speed. And if you do so and you ring on the battery, then you're going to save battery time. If you do so with a gas-powered hedge trimmer, then you can provide less throttle, so consume less gasoline. And then it comes down to the width of the teeth of the knife. The width is important because you need a wide width for woody plants or woody hedges. And for very young, thin branches and very thin hedges like taxus that has been cut at regular times, you can get away with teeth that are closer to each other. It doesn't mean if you have wide teeth you can cut real thick branches. That's not what it means. So typically for very thin and young branches you could use one between 1.5 centimeter to 2 centimeters width between the teeth. If you go in for an all-around one, then typically that would be between 2 and 2.5. And then for the real professional stuff, which is really for cutting a lot of different things, you want to go for a teeth difference or tooth difference between 3 and 3.5 or 2 and 3.5. They come in different sizes. If you're buying a cheap hedge trimmer, then you're going to be stuck with a fixed blade. If you're buying a more expensive one, then you may be able to swap out the blades and you may have speed control on it as well, especially if it's electric. The next factor is what I call portability. It all depends where you have to cut the hedge. Is it in the back of your yard? Then it's easy. You may have a power outlet close by. But if it's in the middle of a field where there is no power outlet, then you may have to fall back to a gasoline-powered hedge trimmer or a battery-powered hedge trimmer. In the first case, you could use just one on the mains with an extension cord. So portability is very important. And then finally, it is a little bit about the protection of the blade. Some of the blades have a protection shield in the front, which is good because when you hit the ground, then you can prevent it from being damaged. Others don't have this. Also for the handle, some of the handles you can rotate, especially if you're going to cut vertical or horizontal. You might want to move this handle around, which gives you more comfort to cut the hedge. Some of them have fixed handles, some of them have rotatable handles in different angles and degrees. And then finally, it's all about the speed as which you want to work and the comfort that you want to have while cutting the hedge. Now we're getting back to the weight, and the weight is an important factor. Working 8 hours a day with a hedge trimmer, which is 5 kilograms, you're going to get real big muscles on that one. Not something you want to do. It's like lifting weight for a whole day, and seriously, that's not what you want to get. You want to have a lightweight machine, as lightweight as possible for your specific purpose. There are a couple more factors that we need to think about, and that is, for instance, the noise. A gas-powered hedge trimmer makes quite a bit of noise. So that might not be suitable where you live. Maybe you have neighbors close by that can't stand any noise. So think about it. And then it's the efficiency of cutting. Maybe you want to move real fast, so you want to have a long blade. You want to have a motor which is powerful enough, and I haven't talked about the motor itself, but we talk about this in a few minutes. And you want to have a stroke per minute which is very high, so you can really advance very quickly with your blade. And you want to have the blade cutting on both sides as well, so when you go up and when you come down. So a double-actioned knife is certainly necessary in that case. But again, you need to make up your mind for what purpose you're going to use it. And now let's get into the machines. The first machine we want to talk about is the one which is driven by the mains. So you have an electrical hedge trimmer which is plugged into the mains. You will need an extension cord, and then you can get those with long blades, short blades. Typically they are fixed blades. Most of them also you can adjust the speed on them, but not all of them. Again, it depends on the price that you paid for it. They are also having, in most cases, double-actioned knives, but not always. That again depends on how much money you want to spend. They are not heavy, they are not light, but they are quite all right. They are okay for residential use. They don't make a lot of noise, they have no fumes. The only big drawback that I always find about those is that you have to drag along this extension cable. That can become a real pain in the bee. it's not uncommon that people actually cut into the wire, and that's not a good thing to do. So that is one choice. So if you're going to buy an electrical powered hedge trimmer, make sure that the motor is having enough strokes per minute and that the motor is powerful enough so it can handle a fully loaded meshed blade. The next one is the gas-powered trimmer. Those are typically very good. They have a lot of power and exist in two-stroke and four-stroke gasoline engines. The two-stroke makes a lot of noise and also a little bit of smoke because you got oil inside the gasoline. The four-stroke makes less noise, but as it's a thermic engine, a combustion engine, they are a little bit heavy. You also have the fuel reservoir with it. That also takes weight. If you put 1 liter in, we are adding 1 kilogram. They are also, as I said, noisy and they smell, right? So even though you may be using special gasoline like Aspen 2 and Aspen 4 for 2 and 4 stroke, they're still going to smoke and you will smell it. Now, if you are right-handed, typically the exhaust is on the left-hand side, so it's always pointing downwards. So you're not going to have that in your face, but if you're left-handed, then it's a different story because most machines will then be built for right-handed people, and then the exhaust is on the top and it's in your face. So I don't like that. Now, you might remember when I said like the exhaust is on the left-hand side. Well, I'm right-handed, so the exhaust is pointing downwards. If you were left-handed, you would be cutting like this, and the exhaust would be right in your face. And in addition, you have the heat from the exhaust all around you the whole day long if you're cutting a whole day. So I don't like it. You have to have ear protectors on, and and of course you wear goggles, but that's true for all of them, and gloves. But yeah, that's good. I think a lot of professional users, they prefer this because they have a very good stroke per minute rate typically, right? But then you have all the hassle of getting it started. The spark plug is then spoiled sometimes. You need to stop to fill it up, and maybe that's a good rest time. Anyway, those are good machines, and again, you can vary the stroke rate because you can have less or more throttle. You have different blade lengths. Typically, it's a fixed blade. You cannot change it. The next type is what I call the battery-driven hedge trimmer, the one that is either a integrated battery inside the hedge trimmer, so it's a bit the same like the electrical one, but here you are limited in the amount of time you can cut. Most of the time they are adjustable in strokes per minute, and they can come in different lengths of the blade. However, yeah, half an hour cutting might finish it off, and then you have to plug it in to charge it back up. The better alternative is that you have a removable battery, so you have a small battery that you can plug in. You do your job. When the battery runs empty, take it out, put a new battery in. The drawback as well is a bit the weight, because of the battery, the lithium battery, it's quite heavy. You're having more weight on it. But maybe, yes, if you have one battery and you stop and then you charge it up, you have a coffee in between, that will work for you. In a residential area, that might be fine in your house, but not if you are doing professional work and you need to cut a lot of edges. That is not an option. And then we have a similar machine, but now the battery is not integrated inside the machine. It is on a lap belt. So the battery is on your lap. There's a cable from the battery going actually to the hedge trimmer. That saves a lot of weight on the hedge trimmer, at least the weight of the battery. And now you have a far lighter hedge trimmer that is more enjoyable to work with on your arms, because after a while your arms start really to hurt. Again, here you will have to have two batteries, and in many cases the battery can also be used for other tools that you might have from the same brand. And then we have the backpack battery. This is a battery which is fitted to a harness and it's on your back. Very handy. I have one which is about 7 kilograms, and it's on your back, but you don't feel that. And there's a cable in the back that then connects to the hedge trimmer. It can make the hedge trimmer very, very light. Mine is about 1.5 kilograms less than what you would find on a normal battery-operated hedge trimmer. Really great stuff. and I enjoy it. I can exchange the blades easily. I can put short ones, long ones up. I can put blades up with shorter spacing between the knives or more spacing. It all depends what I need, and I have 4 speed selections. That battery that I have lasts me about 8 hours of continuous trimming a hedge. That is the ultimate tool, but I can of course understand that this is not what you would use in your own garden if the hedges are not that big. But if your garden becomes a little bit bigger and you need to trim many different things, that's probably the right tool to use. Of course, price is an issue, right? Now, electrical hedge trimmers that are running on the mains are the cheapest versions. They are very cheap compared to all the rest. Then the next one up is the gasoline powered. That one is more expensive than the electrical one. And then we have the battery-based, integrated battery-based trimmers. They can be about the same as the gasoline powered, sometimes a little bit less. It depends a bit on how strong the battery is and the options and the spare batteries that come with it. Then the hip belt driven one, that is also very good, but that's more expensive than the integrated battery. And then finally, the backpack battery, that is most likely the most expensive one. And just to give you a price indication, the hedge trimmer itself with the motor and the blade and the backpack, that probably runs you about $1,800 to $2,000 or euros, which is quite expensive, but then again, it will last you a long, long time. So folks, now you know a little bit more about hedge trimmers and what is the best choice for you. I'm not sure if I could help you, but I certainly tried. So thank you for viewing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.